So let's wait for, okay, so I think we can start now. Good afternoon again, guys. Our next topic, or our last topic specifically, will be on related rates. So this is the last topic before we will have our final exam, which is next week. Okay. So related rates, from the name itself, so we are gonna discuss, or we are going to have rates of change wherein they are related to each other. So in other words, if I try to have rates of changes, pwedeng i-consider natin na yung, kunwari, nagbago yung isang quantity, yung pagbabago nitong quantity na to ay konektado dun sa pagbabago ng pangalawang quantity. So, kunwari, ang pinaka madaling dyan is if we have, for example, a triangle. Do you know what is a triangle, guys? A triangle. So, kunwari, I have a rubber band. Let me have a rubber band, for example. Kunwari, I have a triangle. Kunwari, itong triangle na to. Nakikita ba? Nakikita nyo ba? Yan. Itong triangle na to. Kunwari, I maintain the pala hindi rubber band para fix yung length. Wala akong string dito eh. Kunwari, I have itong cord na lang para hindi gumagalaw. Pwede ko na yung rubber band kasi gagalaw yung length niya. Kunwari, I have a string. Meron akong string, kunwari ito. Nakikita ba to? Okay, fix natin yung okay. So, nakikita to. Kunwari, I have a triangle. So, if I try to change itong length na yung hypotenuse ko, okay, lilitan ko. Pag nilitan ko to, okay, mapapansin nyo, humahaba din yung iba, umiikli yung isa. Tama ba? For example, I have this one. Okay. So, yung pagbago ng haba nitong hypotenuse ay konektado rin yung paghaba o pag-iikli nito o paghaba nitong isa pang length. Diba? So, kung mabilis ang pagbago ng aking length ng aking hypotenuse, mabilis din yung pagbago nito, di ba? So, mabilis din yung pag-ikli, mabilis din yung paghaba ng isa pa. So, yun na isa sa ibig sabihin ng related rates, that if we try to consider rates of changes, they can somewhat be related to the rate of change of another quantity. Okay, so yun ang gagawin natin dito. And basically, when we consider rates of change, and then when we consider derivative, pag sinabi kasi natin derivative, it's basically rate of change. Okay? So, let us now discuss how are we going to solve related rates. Okay? So, first is we draw the diagram. Okay, so basically when solving problems, usually, okay, if not most of the time, we have to draw the diagram para mas madali natin maintindihan kung ano yung nangyayari sa problem. So, but basically, kapag hindi naman kailangan or imposibleng ma-drawing, hindi natin kailangan i-drawing. But basically, again, most of the times we have to draw the diagram. Okay, next is, after drawing the diagram, we label the quantities, the changes, and those that don't change. Okay? So, kanina, dun sa triangle natin, lahat ng sides nagbabago, di ba? As we change the one of the sides, of the lengths of the sides. Pero there would be cases na yung isa hindi naman nagbabago. Kunwari, ang pinakamagandang example naman dyan ay kapag kunwari meron tayong hagdan, di ba? Imagine niyo kunwari ito yung hagdan. Siyempre yung hagdan, fix yun, di ba? Kapag nag-slide yan, di ba? Mari, nag-slide yung baba, yung height ng top ng ladder magbabago as this distance of itong dulo, itong baba, lower part ng ladder. Yung distance naman niya dito sa, kunwari ito yung nililinya, okay? Yung kung saan siya nakapatong. yung layo nito doon sa kung saan siya nakapatong humahaba as this one becomes lower to the ground. Okay? Pero mapapansin nyo, yung ladder, hindi nagbabago ng length. Okay? Ang nagbabago lang ay yung taas nito sa ground and then ito naman yung layo nito dito sa kung saan nakalin yung ating ladder. Di ba? Pag binabaw mo ganun. O pag inakyat. Di ba? So notice, in this case, nagbabago yung itong height and then itong distance na to. Di ba? Pero yung ladder mismo, hindi nagbabago ng haba. Okay? So those are kinds of problems, especially rather types of problems na nangyayari ay yung iba nagbabago, yung iba hindi. Okay? There are also a lot of problems. So sabi dito, we represent only those variables that changes. So syempre, kapag fix, you just give the constant number. Kasi later on, remember, ang aim natin dito is we will try to get the derivative. So dapat, when we take on the derivative of constant, nagiging zero siya. So patandaan nyo. Okay, next. Identify the given and the unknown. Okay, so that's, I think, very basic. Next is, we find an equation involving the variables whose rate of change you are looking for and those that are given. So, kunwari, dun sa ladder problem natin, kailangan nating i-consider yung rate of change, kunwari, ng pagbaba, pag-ikli ng height ng top ng ladder. So, kailangan nating i-consider kung ano yung pwede nating magamit na formula or equation that involving that height and the length or rather the distance. Okay? So ano pwede natin gamitin dyan? So we can consider the Pythagorean theorem. Diba? So there are other equations that you can also use. Okay, let's wait. I think there's someone is joining. So next is we implicitly differentiate the equation with respect to time. Okay, so we just get the derivative of both sides with respect to time. So dahil ang ginagawa natin dito is we're going to look into the rate of change, so we get the derivative with respect to time. So syempre, lahat ng if we take on the derivative with respect to time, we are actually getting the rate of change of that variable with respect to time. So parang yung dati, di ba, we just get the derivative of something with respect to x. Ngayon, gawin natin with respect to t lang. Okay, and then we now after differentiating, we now substitute. Dito tayo magsa-substitute and then we conclude kung ano yung tanong. Depende sa tanong. Okay, so there are some points that we have to consider when dealing with rate of change or related rates. Or sometimes, related rates, they also call it instantaneous rate of change. Kasi later on, we will be considering rate of change at a certain instant. Okay, so ito yung usual problem. We always have problem with the algebra. In other words, yung pagmamanipulate natin ng ating equation later on. So we always double check. And then, ito pa, isang maling ginagawa ng karamihan when solving for related rates. We do not plug in any constant for changing quantities until after you have differentiated. In other words, hanggat hindi tayo nagde-derivative, hindi muna tayo magsa-substitute. Lalo na yung mga nagbabago ng quantity. For example, yung sa ladder problem natin ulit, yung length ng ladder lang ang hindi nagbabago, so you can leave it as a constant. Pero yung itong height nito at saka yung distance, dahil nagbabago sila, in other words, they are variables, hindi mo muna siya papalitan ng fixed variable. Okay, or ng constant. So, hanggat hindi pa tayo nagdi-derivative, wala munang magsa-substitute. Okay? And then, we know what the units are when you differentiate a quantity. So, yung kailangan nating alamin yung units. Bakit? Makakatulong sa atin kung saan natin isa-substitute yung mga values. Kunwari, meron kang value na meters per second. Dahil meter per second dyan, ibig sabihin, that's the rate of change of a length with respect to time. So, pwede nating i-consider siya as a derivative of a certain length with respect to time. Eh kung ang unit natin, for example, ay cubic meter per minute, for example. So cubic meter per minute. So ang units natin dyan, cubic meter. So it involves volume, di ba? So it involves volume. So and then over time, so ibig sabihin there's a rate of change of the volume with respect to time. So pwedeng i-consider natin siya as the derivative of volume with respect to t. Okay, so yung mga ganung bagay. So kasi kung alam natin yung mga units, madali din natin isa-substitute later kung saan yung dapat. Okay? Okay, I think that's it. So let's have an example. Okay. This one. Okay, maybe you can just read it first. Wala tayo. Okay, nabasa niyo na guys?
Opo, sir.
Okay, medyo mahaba yung problem. I just took a snip of that. Screenshot ko lang siya sa isang from sumasama pa rin. Okay, so we have a conical paper cup, 3 inches across the top and 4 inches deep, is full of water. So let me just draw it here. Okay, I have here a kita niya ta? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have a conical paper cup, yung paper cup na parang yung sa ice cream pero papel siya. Yun ang nilalagyan ng tubig. Kunwari, ito ba? So, phone, paper cup na, ano ba? Makikita ba?
Sir, hindi lang po yung nakikita yan po.
Paano ba?
Parang
Ganyan, nakikita.
po. Okay na po.
Okay. Yeah. Medyo, naglaroon kasi ng pamangkin ko itong marker. Kaya ayan, mahina. Ayan, medyo nakikita na. Okay, sabi dito, 3 inches across the top and 4 inches deep. Okay, so across the top 3 inches, ibig sabihin ito yung cone daw natin ay 3 inches in diameter and then 4 inches deep, full of water. Ito rin ay 4 inches. Okay, so we can label it as a constant value kasi fix yung height at saka yung diameter ng ating cup. Pero sabi dito, the cup springs a leak at the bottom. Parang may butas dito sa baba, tapos tumatapon daw siya. Okay? So habang tumatapon, from puno siya, magbabawas siya siyempre. Okay? Tama ba? So, kunwari, at a certain given time, andito na yung tubig. Okay, andito na yung tubig niya at a certain given time. So what can you say about this, nakikita ba? Nakikita? Ito kunwari yung, andito na yung tubig ng cup. Nakikita po ba?
Opo, sir. Nakikita po.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin, at a certain given time, itong tubig, hindi natin alam yung radius, di ba? So, let's call this R. Itong ano to ay R. Okay? And then, ito, yung magiging height ng tubig. Okay, let's call it H. Okay? Kita ba? Okay ba? Hindi ba mirror image ako o ano nakikita nyo? Ito ba ay H o hindi?
H po, okay naman po, sir.
Sa akin na siguro kasi ang tingin ko sa sarili ko ito baliktad. Hindi siya baliktad.
Sakto lang po.
Tama. So, mangyayari na, yun. Yun. Next. Sabi dito, the cup springs a leak at the bottom and loses water at the rate of 2 cubic inches per minute. So dahil cubic inches per minute siya, ibig sabihin, rate of change siya ng volume. Di ba? So pwede nating tawagin niya na dV over dt which is equal to 2. Right? Or 2 inches or 2 cubic inches per minute. Okay? Tama? Next. How fast is the water level dropping at the instant when the water is exactly 3 inches deep? Okay? Express the answer in inches per minute. Okay? So, tandaan nyo, sabi dito, we are to find the instant, the rate of change of what? How fast is the water level dropping? So, ibig sabihin, yung rate of change no height, di ba? At instant, kung saan 3 inches na yung height ng water. Okay? Malinaw po ba? So, paano natin gagawin yun? So, first is we have to, sabi dun sa steps natin, we have to draw the diagram. We were able to draw the diagram. Next is we identify the known and the unknown variables. So, we have this. And then, we have at a certain instant, sabi daw, at instant, which is the height is 3 inches. Okay, we need to find the rate of change of the height. Okay, so let us try now to identify an equation that will relate. Kailangan natin yung H and then this volume. So meron ditong hint for the formula of the base, the volume of a cone with base, radius, and height H. So we can actually use that. The volume is equal to, sabi dito, pi over 3, okay, r squared H. Okay? Nakuha? So we now have an equation, we now have to get the derivative. Okay, so we do implicit differentiation here with respect to time. Sabi nun, di ba, hanggat wala tayong, hindi pa tayo tapos mag-derivative, walang magsasubstitute. So, derivative na tayo agad para hindi na tayo magkamali dito. So, we get the derivative of both sides with respect to time. So, the derivative of with respect to time would be dV over dt. Can you follow? Tama ba?
Sir, medyo blurry na po yung pagkasulat.
Ano kaya? Okay. So we now get the derivative of this. So what happens? So ito, constant yung ating pi over 3, right? So we just copy the constant. Okay. Next is we get the derivative of this. But this two variables here are in naka-multiplication siya, di ba? So we will perform product rule. So to perform product rule, first is we copy the first factor, r squared. Okay, can you follow? And then we get the derivative of the second factor with respect to time. So that would be the derivative of h with respect to time. dh over t. Next is, we add, we copy the second factor h. Okay? Nakakasunod po ba? Okay, times the derivative naman ng second factor. Ang derivative ng second factor, that would be 2r, and then derivative ng base with respect to time. Okay, let me change this with the bracket. Okay, so that's it. Okay. Now, so aside from that, guys, maybe we can simplify this further. So dv over dt will be pi over 3, and then that would be r squared dh over dt, and then that would be plus 2 rh dr over dt. Okay. Hello, are you still there? Are we still in the same page, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir.
Okay, next. Uh, ang meron tayo na
Sir,
nakuha
medyo
kanina.
hindi na po,
Ano
sir,
po?
medyo hindi na po nakikita. Medyo hindi na po nakikita.
Oh, pag ganyan, nakikita na ba?
Parang ano po, sir, parang naanoan po ng ilaw niyo po.
Paano ilaw? Wait lang. One more ilaw. I still have one more ilaw there. Hanap tayo ng magandang angle ng ilaw. Okay. Lagyan natin ang ilaw dito sa kabila. Ako lang. Kasi ko lang ito. Isa pang ilaw. Okay. So, but basically, okay ba yung pagkuha ng derivative, guys? So, yung implicit differentiation, tandaan nyo na ha. Yung we have two variables there, yung r at saka h, so we have to perform product rule. Okay? Ayan ba? Nakikita na siya o ganun pa rin? Better ba siya?
Ano po, sir?
Nakikita na ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, ito na tayo. So, nakuha na natin derivative of the equation v equals pi over 3 r squared h into this. Okay. So, ang next natin gagawin is we now look into the variables. Okay. Meron tayong dv dt. Ang kailangan natin, sabi dun sa problem natin, is we need to identify the rate of change of the height. Okay. In other words, we need to find dh dt. dh over dt rather. Okay, at a certain instant na kung saan h is 3. So, meron tayong dh dt, ito yung unknown, meron tayo nito, okay, meron tayong h, pero wala tayong r at saka dr over dt, right? So, paano natin gagawin yan? So, we need to have another variable. Okay? So, let's try to do that. And then, how are you going to do that? Yung ito pa, hindi pa natin nagagamit itong mga given na to. Okay? So, with this, we can actually consider what we call similar triangles. Alam niyo yung similar triangles, guys? Okay? So, pag kinuha ko to, tawag nito, pag in-slice ko tong aking cone, parang diba, ito yung magiging radius niyan. Tapos, I have here as the center, and then ito. So, I can consider this triangle here, right? Nakikita ba, guys?
Po, nakikita na po.
Okay, na. I-drawing ko dito sa labas niya. So, ito yung triangle niya, di ba? Tama? Ito ay, dahil ito, 3, at radius lang to, so ito ay magiging, ano to? Magiging?
1.5.
Okay, 1.5. Tama? Ito, maintain pa rin siya na 4, right? Tama? Meron din tayo isa pa dito, itong radius na to, at saka ito. So I can consider this as an R, the radius of the water, and then the altitude or the depth or the height of the water in the cone, right? So, do you still remember your geometry? We have what we call similar triangles here. Itong triangle na to, itong maliit na triangle dito at saka itong malaking triangle are similar triangles. Dahil similar triangles sila, we can actually have a proportion here. Okay? Wherein if you consider the ratio of the two legs, that will be equal to the ratio of the other two legs of the similar triangle. So we can say that R over H will be equal to 1.5 over 4. Okay? So with this, we were able to have a relationship between R and then H. Okay? So paghiwalayin natin, so that would be 4R equals 1.5H. Okay? Okay? So with this, we have a relationship between R and then H. Pwede na natin kunin ang derivative dito. So may makukuha tayong relationship between dH over dt and then dr over dt. If you get the rate of change here, or the derivative of this, so this will be 4 dr over dt. That will be equal to 1.5 dH over dt. So what I took here is I just took the derivative of both sides with respect to time. Okay? Nakuha? So, pwede ko nang palitan yung dr over dt ng variable in terms of dH over dt. So, dr over dt here, makikita ko ba? Will be equal now to 1.5 over 4. So, that would be, ano ba yan? So, 3 over 8. Okay? 3 over 8 dH over dt. Okay? Can you follow? So, pwede ko nang palitan dito sa aking, ito yung dr over dt ko ng nitong nakuha natin kanina. And same thing, yung ating r, pwede ko na rin palitan ng in terms of h. Okay? So, from here, I can rewrite your r to be 3 over 8h. Di ba? So, papalitan ko lahat ng r. So, magiging equal to sa pi over 3. Ito naman ay 3 over 8h squared dh over dt. Ito namang r ko ulit magiging 2 times 3 over 8h times h. Yung dr over dt ko ay ito, 3 over 8 pa rin. 3 over 8 dh over dt. Okay? Kuha? Medyo magulo ba? Nakuha ba yun, guys? Inaltang ko lang yung R ko dito, nito, at saka yung R ko rin, and then yung dr over dt, pinaltang ko rin dito. Okay? Hello? Nakuha po ba? Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Andyan pa ba? Hello po. Ay,
Opo, sir.
okay. So, ang nangyari, we can now have an equation wherein yung ang magiging variable natin dito is dv dt and then h and then dh dt na lang. So, pwede na natin sigurong i-simplify ito. So, this will be pi over 3. Okay? Ito naman ay 9 over 8 times 8 ay 64. Okay? That would be h squared dh over dt. Ito ay 9 plus 9 magiging 9 over 4 na lang to, di ba? Ay, 9 over 32. Kasi may times 2 pa tayo doon. So, plus 9 over 32 h squared dh over dt. Simplify natin further. So this would be pi over 3. Ito magiging 18 plus 9. So magiging 27 over 64 h squared dh over dt. Okay? So tanggalin natin ito. So magiging 9 pi over 64 h squared dh over dt. Ito na yung dv over dt natin. Okay? Can you follow, guys? Okay? So, meron na lang tayong equation na merong h, dh dt, at saka dv dt. So, pwede na natin i-substitute. Okay? Kailangan natin ma-solve si dv ay dh over dt. So, we just have to solve for dv or dh over dt. So, dh over dt here. So, divide na lang natin ito, yung dv over dt. So, dv over dt natin over 9 pi over 64 h squared. Okay? Sumasama si... Okay? Ayan. Magsa-substitute na tayo dito. Substitute na natin yung dv dt na nakuha natin kanina, which is 2. And then 9 pi over 64 and then h is 3. Substitute na lang natin siya. So, magiging na akong space. Dito ko na lang isulat sa taas. Okay, so ang aking dh over dt kanina ay equal sa dv over dt all over 9 pi over 64 h squared. Okay? Substitute natin yung values. So this will be, we need to identify dh over dt. Simply substitute, specify pala natin at h equals 3. Okay? So, this will be 2. 9 pi over 64. Ang h natin ay 3. Okay? So, magiging 64 times 2. So, that would be 128 over 27. Okay? So, that will now be the rate of change. Ano ba yung ating fan? Ay, sorry. 9 times 9 pala. So, this will be 81. So, yung akin. Ayan. So, yung rate of change ng ating height at a given instant or at the instant na yung ating height ay 3 inches is 128 over 81 pi. In this case, inches per minute. Okay? So, bakit meron tayong at that instant? Kasi pwedeng magbago yung rate of change ng height na to at a different instant. Kasi lalo na dito, notice, yung dh over dt natin ay dependent sa ating h. Di ba? So, pag nagbago na yung height natin, pwedeng magbago na rin yung instantaneous rate of change ng ating height. Okay? Malinaw po ba? So, again, ulitin natin, yung 2 na to, galing lang ito sa dv/dt na nakuha natin kanina, which is 2 inches, 2 cubic inches per minute. And then we just substitute the h, wherein we are taking the derivative of h with respect to time at h equals 3. So substitute lang natin yun. And then we just simplify. So 9 times 9 lang yun, kaya meron tayong 81 pi sa denominator. Itong 64, we just get the reciprocal, kaya times 2. So 2 times 64, we have 128. Okay? Wow. Okay, so medyo magulo lang, pasensya na. Hirap na hirap pa ako dito sa aking paghawak ng whiteboard. Next time, i-fix ko to dito para madali-dali tayo. Okay? Any question? Hello? Naintindihan po ba, guys? May tanong po ba? May tanong? Hello. Woohoo.
Yes, sir.
Malinaw po ba?
Yes, sir. May na signal.
Hello po.
Sir,
Okay na ba? Naintindihan? May tanong? Yes? Kendrick?
Sir, pwede pong patingin pa ng whiteboard. Wow. Screenshot ko, sir.
Ilay natin yung aking camera para mabuo. Ay! Ay.
Ang dami. Wait lang po.
Ayusin ko lang para... Kita na ba lahat?
Di pa, sir. Sir, pangat po konti. Oh,
Layo yung camera sir ng konti.
Kita na?
yun. Sir, yung baba po. Bandong baba.
Ha?
Yun nasa baba sir.
Yan.
Okay na ba yan?
Pangat pa po konti, sir.
Yan.
Salamat. Yan. Salamat po, sir.
Pwede ko kasing i-pin yung sarili ko. Pinirapan ko yung sarili ko. Ayan. Kita na lahat. Okay? Hulugan.
Salamat po, sir.
Okay. So, isa pa. Bubura muna ako dito. Okay? So, actually, pinahirapan ko ng konti yung sarili natin. Medyo may simpleng version. Pero pinakita ko muna yung paano kunin yung derivative ng may dalawang variable para at least maalala natin yung product rule. Pero pwede rin natin i-do away yung product rule na yon. So, paano siya? I'll show you first before we have another example. But before that, wala kasi yung assistant ko dito na taga-bura. Okay? So, paano yun? Let's make it a little bit simpler. So, di ba kanina, nakuha natin yung volume which is pi over 3 r squared h, di ba? Tapos, meron tayong relationship na r ay 4r or yung kanina, yung r natin is 3 over 8h, di ba? Tama? So, pwede natin ito diretso i-substitute dito. So, we have v equals pi over 3 times 3 over 8h squared h. Okay? So, with this, the volume now will be equal to pi over 3 times 9 over 64 h squared times h. So, magiging h cubed na siya. Okay? Can you follow? Simplify pa natin ito. So, the volume now will be equal to 3 pi over 64 h cubed. Okay? Tama? Nakuha ba? So, with this, pwede na tayong dumiretso na mag-derivative. Nakikita pa ba kahit medyo maliwanag?
Di, sir.
Pag-ilagay ko ng ilaw isa. Nakikita ba? Nakikita to? Better ba? Hello? Hello po. Nakikita po ba yung whiteboard ko? pag nilagyan natin ng ilaw na ganyan. Kita ba?
Yan, sir.
Ayan, better yan. Okay, so, dito, nangyari dito, pwede na tayo mag-derivative dito with respect to time. So, if I take on the derivative, dv over dt, derivative of v with respect to time, so dv over dt lang siya. Ito, constant lang yan, so copy natin ng 3 pi over 64. Pwede natin kunin derivative ng h cube. Derivative ng h cube ay 3h squared times derivative of h, and that will be dh over dt. Okay? So, simple lang yung pag-derivative natin. So, dv over dt now will be equal to 9 pi over 64 h squared dh over dt. Okay? What? So, kunin na natin si dh over dt. dh over dt will be dv over dt divided by this coefficient. So, divided by 9 pi over 64 h squared. Okay? So, pwede tayo mag-substitute na yung dh over dt natin at h equals 3. Okay? So, magiging dv over dt natin ay 2 over 9 pi over 64 times 3 squared. Okay? So, ganun pa rin ang lalabas. So, magiging 128 over 81 pi, which is the same as the other. Mas simple siya, di ba? Tama ba, guys? Ako ha? Nakuha ba? Hello? So, parehas din ang lumabas, simpler siya, pero pinakita ko lang yung para malaman, ma-identify natin na there will be two variables a while ago, and then we can actually perform product rule. Okay? Malinaw ba? Are we still in one piece, guys? Andiyan pa ba kayo? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So, yun. So, let's now proceed with the next example. Unless may tanong po kayo. So, ibig sabihin dito, again, at an instant wherein the water level, we can, actually, sorry, I forgot. Kalimutan ko kanina because the signs are also important. Ayun, at least nakita ko na the water level is dropping. So, dapat ang lalabas dito since it's dropping, we have to consider that the rate of change must be negative. So, I have an error that yung dv over dt natin dito must be negative. Okay? So, dapat negative ito. Bakit negative ito? Kasi yung volume ng ating tubig sa loob ng ating cone ay lumiliit. So, kapag lumiliit or decreasing, the derivative should be negative. Okay? So, that's why it's important that we have to place a sign here na dapat negative, para maging consistent tayo dun sa problem that the water level is really dropping. In other words, lumiliit yung ating height. So again, yung negative sign indicates that the function is decreasing, or the negative sign of the derivative indicates that the function is decreasing. In other words, lumiliit. Okay, lumiliit, kumukonte. Okay? So we have to place a negative. So with this, we can now conclude that the water level is changing or dropping at the rate of 128 over 81 pi inches per minute. Okay? So that's the conclusion part. Question? Question po? Hello? Okay na ba? Naintindihan yan, guys. So that's why we have to place a negative. So, may tanong before we proceed to the next question? Hello?
Wala po, sir.
Wala. So, punta na tayo sa next question. Next problem. Wag yan. Okay, let's have this. So, a man 6 feet tall is walking towards a building at the rate of 5 feet per second. Okay? if there is a light on the ground, so kunwari yan yung light, meron na tayong light, langaw na to. Okay, there's a light on the ground 50 feet from the building. So nasa ground yung ating light. Okay, so habang siguro i-drawing ko na rin para mas maintindihan natin. Oops, sorry. Okay, so we have a man, 6 feet tall, walking towards a building at the rate of 5 feet per second. If there is a light, okay, meron daw ilaw. If there is a light on the ground 50 feet from the building, how fast is the man's shadow on the building growing shorter when he is 30 feet from the building? So, start. So, meron tayong isang tao. Meron tayong isang tao. Galing mo drawing, di ba? 6 feet height, 6 feet tall. So, 6. And then he is walking towards a building. So, papunta siya sa isang building. So, punta down. And then, kunwari, andito yung building. Okay. Papunta siya doon. And then, there is a light on the ground 50 feet from the building. Ay, sorry. Yung drawing ko. Pala nasa, andito yung tao. Okay. There is a light 50 feet from the building. So, ibig sabihin, a certain distance, kunwari, this is 50 feet. Andito yung ilaw. Okay. Nakikita po ba? Hello? Hello? Andiyan pa ba kayo?
Opo.
Okay. Ilaw. So dahil may ilaw yan, syempre, this one will cast a shadow. Di ba? Parang may shadow din na makakast ito. Parang ganyan. Tapos meron dito. Tapos andito yung shadow ng tao. Di ba? Sa building. As he walks to the building, papunta yung tao dun sa building, di ba? Papunta doon. Siyempre, pag lumalapit sa doon, siyempre, bababa din yung ating height ng shadow. So, but we can actually consider this there. Okay, so, parang, yan, di ba? Kasi yun yung ilaw, nandun yung magiging shadow niya. Okay? Can you follow? So, alin dito ang fixed? Ang fixed dito, 50 feet. And the height of the man, siyempre, hindi naman niya nagbabago siguro at a given instant, hindi naman siguro ganun kalaki ang pagtangkad. Dahil man na yan, hindi na yung tatangkad, di ba? Okay? And since he is walking, we can consider that itong distance niya, ano yung distance na to? Mula yung tao hanggang dun sa man. Alam ba natin yung distance niya? Anyone? Alam ba natin yung distance ng tao dun sa building? Hello? So wala kasi naglalakad yung tao, di ba? So variable ito. So gawin natin tong x. Okay, tawagin natin siyang x. Okay. And also, yung height ng shadow, syempre dahil gumagalaw din ito, hindi rin natin alam yan. So tawagin natin siyang y. Okay? So with this, we can now create an equation. So tulad nung kanina sa cup, we can consider again similar triangles here. So ano yung magiging similar triangle sa atin? So if I draw the triangle, okay, dito yung ilaw, ito yung tao, ito yung 6, this will be x, this will be y, and the whole thing, ito ay magiging 50. Okay? So we can now, so if this is 50, what can you say about this? This must be 50 minus x. Right? Ayun, namatay. Hindi ako nagbayad ng kuryente kaya namatay. Okay? Yeah. Malinaw ba guys? Ayan, wala na naman akong kausap. Woo! Hello?
Sir.
Okay lang ba? So with this, we can now identify, nakikita ba to? Okay.
Yes, sir, kita.
Okay, we can now identify similar triangles again here. So pwede natin sabihin na ito, itong small triangle na to, ay similar dito sa bigger triangle kasi of course, tawag natin dito, ito, pare sila right triangle, di ba? So similar yung triangles. Okay, so meron na tayong pwedeng makonsider na ratio dito na if I consider the ratio of the legs, 50 minus x over 6, this must be equal to the ratio of also of the legs. That would be y over 50. Saan galing yung y? Ito, yung leg na ng bigger triangle, di ba? Ito. And then 50 would be the leg, the other leg. Ito naman, ito yung isang leg na patayo at saka itong leg na pahiga naman doon sa maliit na triangle. Kaya meron tayong ganito. Okay? So, tanggalin natin yung denominator, cross multiply para mas simple yung 1. So, we can have 50 times 50 minus x, that will be equal to 6y. Okay? So, pwede natin kunin ang derivative nito. Constant lang ito, so we can copy. Derivative ng 50 ay 0. This will be negative dx over dt. And this will be equal to 6 dy over dt. Okay? Diba? So, ang kailangan natin daw sa problem is we need to identify, sabi sa problem, we need to find how fast is the man's shadow growing shorter when he is 30 feet. So, kailangan natin makuha si dy over dt. Okay? So, dy over dt, I can just divide both sides by 6. So, dy over dt will be equal to negative 50 over 6 dx over dt. Okay? Get it? So, dahil meron na tayong dx over dt, which is actually the speed of the man, right? So, pwede na natin itong isubstitute. Okay? So, dy over dt will now be equal to negative 50 over 6 times, ano yung speed ng tao, yung rate of change ng x? That would be 5 feet per second, right? So, times 5. Okay? So this will now be negative 250 over 6. So we can now say that the rate of change of the man, or rather of the height of the shadow on the building, is changing at the rate of negative 250 over 6 feet per second. Okay? Malinaw po. Question? May tanong po ba? Guys, malinaw?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, so I think okay na yun. Unless you still have any question. So, ganun lang ang gagawin natin. So, for related rates, ang gagawin lang natin is first is if we can draw the diagram. Kasi notice yung mga diagrams natin, yun yung tumutulong sa atin para maka-identify ng equation. Okay? And then, after that, we now, after taking the integrals, after getting the equation, we can now take on the derivative with respect to time and then identify the unknown rate of change. Okay? Okay ba? So I think let's call it a let's end my presentation. Okay. So I think that's it. I'll end my recording. So